American 472, Washington, 1 star, 32017.
Did you see that?
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone.
We begin tonight with that breaking news. A passenger jet landing at Reagan National in Washington collided with a military helicopter. The plane went into the Potomac River, where there's a search and rescue operation tonight. American Airlines says 60 passengers and 4 crew were on that plane coming into Washington from Wichita. CNN reports there were 3 soldiers on the Black Hawk.
A law enforcement source tells CNN there have been deaths among those on board. This EarthCam video from an observation camera at the nearby Kennedy Center shows the moment of collision. You can see the 2 sets of lights appear to collide and then an explosion. According to data from the radio transponder, the commercial flight was about 400 feet in the air and going 140 miles per hour when hit. CNN is reporting the Black Hawk helicopter was taking part in a training exercise at the time of the crash, but it's still not clear what caused the mid-air collision.
That's going to be a big question. What were the air traffic controllers doing? Why weren't they monitoring? And what were the military procedures lifting off? Because that is a very busy corridor. I grew up there, and there are helicopters flying low level all the time over the top and underneath the approach paths to Reagan National.
It's important to note these kinds of collisions are extremely rare. This is the first deadly commercial plane crash in the U.S. in 16 years.
Shortly, a moment ago, we learned that Reagan's going to be closed until at least Friday morning while they sort all of this out. And it's such a horrific situation because of all of the air traffic spaces in the U.S., like that is one that's constantly managing military traffic along with civilian traffic, helicopters along with aircraft coming in and out. This is their day-to-day there. They're very, very used to that kind of congestion in the airspace.
With the Potomac right there next to it all. And that's that massive recovery that we're watching right now, search and rescue at this point. We know the airplane is in the water and the helicopter is also in the water. And it's incredible what they're doing right now, hoping to save lives.
Right, and as horrific as these things are, and we tend to fixate them on when they happen, you know, they're so exceptionally rare. There's not been a passenger plane crash like this in the U.S. since 2009, the Colgan Air crash outside of Buffalo, New York. Greg was listing off a couple of other crashes in the years before that, but 15 years since America has seen this type of terrible passenger air disaster. And it happened at an airport that so many people know, in a city that so many people are familiar with, at least in passing, right? They know the geography of it, the airport right there on the river with the, the Capitol across the river, all of official Washington right there. And, the type of flight that just is so routine every day, right? Like, that's the entire point. If we haven't seen something like this in 15 years, then you've got tens and tens of millions of flights since the last time something like this happened in American aviation. And
there's so many safety measures in place. You're not only relying on air traffic controllers, but you have equipment on board the plane that warns you if something else is there. And then the pilots themselves are constantly looking around to make sure that they're safe and there's nothing else in that airspace.
And as Greg said, he would not be surprised if what comes out of this in the end is some type of requirement for military planes to have more civilian type transponders and equipment on board so that they are more visible to the civilian air systems and to the other pilots.
Yeah, something will be learned no matter what. They'll come to some kind of a conclusion about what led to this tragedy. So we'll continue to follow this story. We'll keep you updated on air and online.
Let's talk about the weather here at home. Dry now. Snow is expected to move into the Denver metro area overnight. Still could be coming down by the time folks are driving to work. Kathy Sabin.
That's right, Kyle. Not for everyone, though, and that's the tricky part of the forecast. The southern Colorado storm already bringing snow to the southern half of the state. Still dry in downtown Denver and relatively mild. We topped out at 49, and we're still sitting in the mid-30s above freezing. This upper level low, as it moves east over northern New Mexico, the counterclockwise flow is bringing bands of rain and snow showers from the southeast back toward the west and northwest toward the Denver metro area. Heaviest snow will be in the mountains and foothills where winter weather and travel advisories are out for up to a foot of snow in the San Juan, the Sangre de Cristo range. And then we go up to like the Palmer Divide, Castle Rock. These are the areas under a winter weather advisory as we expect additional accumulation in a moderate snow band that looks to come in sometime during the morning drive. This band may not make it all the way into the metro area, but those of you in the southern suburbs and eastern Colorado will be seeing seeing accumulating snow that will be impactful for the morning commute. Again, the heaviest snow south and east, and I'll have much more on the timing and impact coming up.
The White House is backtracking on an order to freeze most federal loans and grants. The Office of Management and Budget issued a memo Monday saying the pause was necessary in order to review whether spending aligned with President Trump's agenda. That led to widespread confusion on everything from education to health care to nonprofits. A judge temporarily blocked the freeze from taking effect, and then today the Trump administration rescinded that memo.
So, I mean, regardless, this is already having ripple effects here in Colorado. In one such case, an attempt to hold on to federal funding, Denver Health says it will no longer offer gender-affirming surgeries to people under the age of 19.
9 News reporter Spencer Soysher joins us now. And Spencer, you spoke with the doctor who created this surgical unit at Denver Health.
Yeah, and there's an important distinction here between gender-affirming surgery and gender-affirming care. Even in states where gender-affirming surgery is legal for people under the age of 18, it still requires parental consent, and some states have further restrictions on care as well. So stopping gender-affirming surgery for people under 19 at Denver Health basically stops surgery for people between 18 and 19 years old. Denver Health says they're making this change to comply with President Trump's executive order and to preserve their federal funding. Denver Health gets about $89 million a year from the federal government outside of Medicaid, and said it hasn't decided yet what their plan is for gender-affirming care, like hormone treatments. A world-renowned surgeon who specializes in this kind of care and performs these surgeries here at Denver Health says that could be devastating to the trans community.
We know that population is at high risk for psychosocial stress, and lack of access is a real hardship for many people. We hope it doesn't lead to suicidality, but we know that is one of the outcomes that are evident.
We asked Denver Health tonight what surgeries they were performing in the past that they won't be performing in the future. They didn't have a concrete answer for us tonight, saying that they're focused right now on figuring that out and also making sure that their patients are not affected too badly by this executive order. Reporting live in Denver, Spencer Soysher, 9 News.
A small school district in Teller County will only recognize 2 genders. Tonight, the Woodland Park School District voted 4-1 to pass that resolution. It directs the superintendent to change anything that contradicts the new policy, recognizing just the male and female genders. And that includes rules surrounding restrooms and sports. The resolution cites an executive order President Trump signed on the first day of his second term that declares the federal government only recognizes 2 genders. Colorado has a law in the books that requires schools to allow people to use facilities consistent with their gender identity, including restrooms and locker rooms. A strike could be looming for some grocery stores. King Soopers employees have considered voting on that action all day.
Let's bring in 9 News reporter Janelle Finch for an update on where things stand, Janelle, between the union and the company.
Kim, Kyle, union members from Denver, Parker, Broomfield all met in Westminster today to think about voting on possibly striking. Grocery store employees say that this could be potentially necessary action based on what the company has or hasn't offered them. King Soopers says it didn't have to be this way.
In the fight between grocery store employees and the company they work for, one side believes no one stands to win.
Not the union, not the company, not the communities, not our customers. It's just really disappointing.
King Soopers Division President Joe Kelly says UFCW Local 7 leadership representing workers is skipping steps to strike.
The last best and final offer that was presented is her responsibility to allow the associates, her union members who she works for, to vote on it, and she hasn't done it.
Union President Kim Cordova,
no, because it's an unlawful offer,
doesn't deny jumping to strike.
Regardless of what they want to call it, it's an unlawful offer. They've engaged in unfair labor practices, and we're asking for authorization to initiate a strike because of King Soopers' unlawful behavior.
She says members are ready to take action.
We had 2 strike vote meetings already, standing room only, a lot of energy in the room.
Cordova says the sacrifice is worth the fight for better wages, treatment, and consumer experience.
Welcome, valued customer.
And they said it over and over. They only want a contract that is best for the business, even at the risk of the workers' health care. There's not wages across the board. They're not addressing safety. They're definitely not addressing the staffing crisis in the stores.
Kelly says all the money is on the table, but the process has to be done right.
So we continue to invest. We've done it over 77 years, and we'd like to get the deal done, but she needs to come to the table and negotiate in good faith, or at least respond and present the offer.
So everyone loses until someone wins.
Unfortunately, the situation that we're in right now, we can't control.
Union strike vote meetings are expected to last throughout this week across Colorado. Live in Glendale, Janelle Finch, 9 News.
Entire neighborhoods were destroyed in the deadly fires near Los Angeles. A group from Westminster, firefighters, have spent the last 2 weeks battling those flames.
9 News reporter Colton Chavez is along from Westminster. Colton, tonight those firefighters, they're back home.
Yeah, they are, Colin. For Lieutenant Danny Fitch, he says every year he's sent out of Colorado to deal with wildfires. But he says the task this year was unlike anything he's ever seen.
This is the biggest incident I've ever been on.
Lieutenant Danny Fitch says he's seen a lot over his 30-year career with the Westminster Fire Department.
The difference for us is a lot of times when we go on wildfires, it involves forest, and this was just homes, and one after another.
Homes destroyed by the Palisades fire outside of Los Angeles. It's now burned more than 23,000 acres. That's more than 35 square miles. Fitch was part of a strike team that was sent from Colorado to help.
What we did is we went in and we secured fire perimeters, went in, started mopping up, knocking down hot spots, searching around homes.
We do expect wildfires to increase, especially in the western U.S.
Erin Roberson is a professor of atmospheric science at MSU Denver. She says climate change means massive fires like this will only become more frequent.
Climate change is going to kind of enhance that dryness, and when it enhances the dryness, the vegetation becomes drier, and that in turn leads to a lot of fuels for wildfires to burn.
Fuels which, in this case, meant little rest for Fitch and his crew.
Rough night of sleep, listening to the radio squawk all night, you're sleeping in your truck, dressed ready to go to work.
Ready to battle the next one with other firefighters from across the country.
This incident there was a camaraderie there, that everybody was there for this greater purpose.
And speaking with the Westminster Fire Department, they tell me when they do send these crews out of state, what they do is they take federal funding and backfill those positions, taking firefighters from other parts of the state and allowing them to be at full staff while those other firefighters are out of state. Live in Westminster, Colton Chavez, 9 News.